Forget the cave, forget the spear, the snow, the brutish figure hunched against an ice age wind. If you want to find the Neanderthals, you don't need a shovel. You need a mirror, because the strangest evidence of what happened between our two species isn't buried in European sediment. It's inside your body right now, in the receptors your immune system uses to recognize a bacterium, in your skin and hair, in the genes that decide whether you wake up easily. For most of the 20th century, the story was clean. Homo sapiens emerged in Africa, spread out, and replaced everything that came before. Pure lineage. No mixing. That story is dead, and what replaced it is far stranger. What gets me about this subject isn't how much we've learned, it's how much we had to abandon first. And what we abandoned is where this starts. In 1987, mitochondrial DNA traced every living human back to a single female ancestor in Africa. By the late 80s, the dominant model had a name: out of Africa replacement. We emerged, we expanded, and every other human species simply died out. Then, in May of 2010, a team at the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig, led by Svante Pääbo, published the first draft of a Neanderthal genome, read from bone powder drilled out of fossils in a Croatian cave. The replacement model collapsed in a single afternoon. Everyone outside Africa carried Neanderthal DNA, roughly 1 to 2%. Pääbo won the Nobel Prize for it in 2022. And here is what almost everyone gets wrong about that discovery. The 1 to 2% wasn't the finding, it was the doorway. Once you can read an extinct genome, you can ask questions nobody could ask before. Not just did it happen, but when, how often, in which direction, and what happened to the children. I'll admit I expected those answers to be modest, a refinement to the old story. What they actually describe is 100,000 years of contact across 3 continents between populations that met, drifted apart, and met again. That is the strange truth about Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. And it doesn't begin with how Neanderthals ended up in our DNA. It begins with how we ended up in theirs first. In 2016, a team led by Martin Koolwilm was studying the genome of a Neanderthal woman from Denisova cave in Siberia, sequenced from a single toe bone. Sitting inside it were stretches of modern human DNA. I read that twice, convinced I had the direction backwards. I hadn't. Human DNA inside a Neanderthal from gene flow around 100,000 years ago, which means a group of Homo sapiens left Africa long before the migration in every textbook, found Neanderthals, had children with them, and then vanished without leaving a single descendant among living people. I find that genuinely haunting. A whole population, with families and languages and 100 generations behind them, and the only proof they ever existed is a trace they left inside the species they met. There is an older signal still. In 2020, Martin Peter and Janet Kelso pulled Y chromosomes out of Neanderthal remains for the first time. The original Neanderthal Y chromosome was gone, replaced entirely by a modern human one. The same had happened to their mitochondrial DNA more than 220,000 years earlier. Neanderthal populations were small, and small populations accumulate harmful mutations. When healthier versions arrived, selection swept them through until nothing of the original remained. Neanderthals were partly overwritten by us, long before we ever walked into Europe. So the first direction of travel was inward. And once I accepted that, one question wouldn't leave me alone. How many times did this happen? In 2024, a team led by Joshua Akey at Princeton found recurrent gene flow, stretching back 200,000 years, not one event, 3 broad waves. But here's where it gets subtle. That same December, 2 more studies dated the Neanderthal DNA that actually survives in living people. It arrives in long chunks and gets chopped shorter every generation, so segment length works as a clock. That clock pointed to one extended window of mixing, beginning about 50,500 years ago and running roughly 7,000 years. Both are true, and holding them together is the insight. There were many encounters, but almost all the Neanderthal DNA in you comes from a single window near the end. The earlier ones happened. Their lineages simply died out. And these were not crowds meeting. Genetic work on a group from Chagyrskaya cave in Siberia suggests bands of perhaps 10 to 20 people, holding a branch of humanity together across a continent. For a long time I assumed the interesting question here was how the DNA got in. It isn't. It's what happened to it once it was there. Because it did not stay evenly distributed. Neanderthal ancestry piles up in specific places at frequencies far too high to be chance. Geneticists call it adaptive introgression, and the logic is simple. Neanderthals had lived in Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years, tuned to its cold, its weak sunlight, and above all, its diseases. Our ancestors walked in with no local immunity at all. Interbreeding was a shortcut. The clearest case is a cluster of toll-like receptor genes, part of the immune system that recognizes bacteria before your body has ever met them. High-frequency versions in living Europeans and Asians trace straight back to Neanderthals. Genes for keratin, the protein in skin and hair, are enriched too, along with variants affecting pigmentation and genes that push your body clock toward waking early. Exactly what you'd expect from a lineage adapted to high latitudes. It isn't all gift. One Neanderthal-derived variant is among the strongest known risk factors for type 2 diabetes in some populations. A stretch of chromosome 3 turned out to be one of the strongest for severe COVID-19, but the enriched regions are only half the map. And when I first saw the other half, it unsettled me, because the other half is empty. Across the genome, there are stretches longer than 10 million letters of DNA where Neanderthal ancestry isn't rare. It's effectively zero. Geneticists call them archaic deserts, and one analysis counted 18. The largest sits on chromosome 7, and inside it is a gene called FOXP2, long associated with speech and language. This is where the story usually gets told badly, so let me be precise. That does not mean Neanderthals lacked language genes. They carried the same 2 key protein changes in that gene that we do. Whatever the incompatibility was, it was almost certainly about regulation, about when the gene switches on. The honest position is that the desert is real, and we don't yet know why. And I'd rather leave you with that than a tidy answer that isn't true, because the tidy version is what got us into trouble in the first place. What we do know is when they formed. They already existed in modern humans living 40,000 years ago in Romania, Siberia, and China. They appeared almost immediately, and slow disadvantage doesn't clear a region that fast. 2 of the largest depleted regions sit on the X chromosome and around genes most active in the testes. On the X chromosome, Neanderthal ancestry is reduced roughly 5-fold. Across the animal kingdom, that signature appears when 2 lineages have been apart just long enough that hybrid males struggle to reproduce, which means we can retire an old idea. For years, the shorthand was sterility, the mule model, hybrids as dead ends. If hybrids had been sterile, you wouldn't be here. What the data describe is a filter, not a wall. Some hybrid males likely had reduced fertility, and many Neanderthal variants were mildly harmful in a modern human body. So the ancestry wasn't erased in a generation. It was weeded out across thousands of generations, leaving only what was neutral or useful. The 1 to 2% you carry isn't what was inherited. It's what survived the edit. And Neanderthals weren't the only ones being edited. Eurasia was never a 2-species world. In 2010, DNA from a single finger bone in Denisova cave revealed an entirely new group of humans. The Denisovans, identified from genetics before anatomy, split from Neanderthals more than 390,000 years ago, and populations in Papua New Guinea carry several percent Denisovan ancestry today. Then, in 2018, that same cave produced the most remarkable fossil in this field, a bone fragment found among more than 2,000 unidentifiable scraps. It belonged to a girl of at least 13 who died about 90,000 years ago. Researchers nicknamed her Denny. Her mother was a Neanderthal. Her father was a Denisovan, a first-generation hybrid, the only one ever found. And I keep getting stuck on something smaller than the genetics. She was 13. She had a mother and a father who belonged to 2 different kinds of human. And as far as anyone can tell, that was simply her family. Not a scandal. Just a girl in a cave in the Altai whose ordinary life is the clearest proof we have that the boundaries we drew were never really there. It goes deeper still. The Denisovan genome itself contains DNA from an older population nobody has ever found a bone from. Geneticists call these ghost lineages. Which forces a hard question. If interbreeding was this normal, why is there only one kind of human left? Popular answer is conquest. Radiocarbon dating has quietly dismantled it. Neanderthals disappeared between roughly 41,000 and 39,000 years ago, not abruptly, but as a patchy, staggered fade, with both species overlapping for thousands of years. And in 2019, a modeling study led by Christ Vason removed modern humans from the equation entirely. Simulated Neanderthal populations, with only inbreeding, the difficulty small groups face finding mates, and random swings in births and deaths, they went extinct on their own. No competition required. The genomes agree. The Neanderthal woman from the Altai had parents who were half-siblings. A late Neanderthal from France, nicknamed Thorin, came from a lineage that had been genetically isolated for around 50,000 years, living within a few days' walk of other Neanderthal groups it apparently never mixed with. That is the detail I can't shake. A few days' walk. For 50,000 years there were other people just over the horizon, and his lineage never found them or never went. If you want an image for how a species quietly ends, it isn't a battle. It's that. So picture what happened. A thin, fragmented population already sliding toward its minimum viable size, meeting a much larger and better connected one. Every generation, a few individuals absorbed. Their descendants became sapiens. The rest thinned, fragmented, then blinked out one valley at a time. Not extermination, dilution. And that leaves the question that took me longest to sit with, because it isn't about Neanderthals at all. It's about a word I've been using this whole video without examining. Species. The standard definition says 2 species can't produce fertile offspring. By that test, these weren't separate species, because they plainly did. But they were apart for roughly 500,000 years, and their hybrids paid a measurable cost. The neat definition was always a simplification. Brown bears and polar bears interbreed. Wolves and coyotes interbreed. Speciation is a leaky gradient, not a switch. Human evolution isn't a ladder, and it isn't really a tree. Researchers increasingly call it a braided stream. Channels separating, running apart, then merging again downstream. Neanderthals were never a failed side branch. They were a divergent version of us that ran in parallel for 500,000 years, then flowed back in. And they never entirely left. Any one person carries only a small percentage, but different people carry different fragments. Add them up across living humanity, and at least a fifth of the entire Neanderthal genome, by some estimates closer to 40%, is still here. Distributed, fragmented, running. There is no pure lineage. There never was. So the next time you see a museum reconstruction, that heavy brow, that broad face, and feel the instinctive distance of looking at something other, sit with this instead. You are looking at a relative whose species ended 40,000 years ago while its DNA carried on without it. Does knowing we are a hybridized species change how you see human history? Tell me in the comments, because I think it changes everything. And if you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories like this one. Thanks for watching.